Hi everyone, Comic Reviewer here, this time reviewing on Nightwing, issue number 1. Now, as you know, this is part of a 4-part mini-series, as well as the first time Nightwing getting a comic book series, which was meant to be that Dick Grayson became Nightwing and became his own persona. And the issue deals with the death of his parents, as well as the adaptation to his newer costume. And the story begins how Nightwing looks up on a rooftop down below and sees that a young girl is being held by gunpoint. And this is the guy he's about to shoot saying, "I'm sorry." "I'd say I'm sorry. That's a lie." So Nightwing takes down the gun and looks like something of a mix of Kronar the Barbarian mixed with a Stormhawk costume. And so Nightwing pretty much says, "You were going to drop that gun, weren't you?" So the guy pretty much has 3 of his henchmen to take them out, but Nightwing takes them down with little to no effect. And you've got a shot of his ass saying, "Oh, and I was wondering, when somebody pulls another piece." And so, just as the guy's about to fire, he rams the gun into him and says, "Geez, it didn't go all the way in. Guess he'll have to get a bigger nose." And so he points out who the guy's meant to be and how he's flunked out of schools and that. So he pretty much knocks the girl down, and Nightwing goes full berserk mode on him. And Nightwing says, "You probably didn't like it any more than the girl did. How is she?" And so he starts reminiscing how beautiful she is. So it turns out Bruce Wayne was watching by the shadows, and him and Dick Grayson are talking. And we find out that, that since Bruce brought him into his world, he's never had any real time to himself. And so he pretty much says, "I quit being Nightwing, I want to find my own persona." And says, "You were fine." "No, I was acquitted, but I hated it." And so he gives him the costume, and he says, "What should I do with it?" "Put it in a trophy case. Give it to Salvation Army. Burn it." And so we see Dick Grayson meeting the girl, who's known as Maggie, and we see her with her mum. And just then we are introduced to her father, who talks with them, saying, "Willie Webster, young fella, you are a friend of my daughter's?" "Not exactly." And so they talk about having a cappuccino together, where Dick Grayson says, "Yeah, sure, sounds good, I'll call you." And so we see Dick Grayson heading to his apartment, where, he's trying to, get to sleep, but can't. So he goes into his fridge, but hardly anything in the fridge. And so you see Alfred with him, having breakfast for him, and says, "Master Dick, I took the liberty of letting myself in." And says that he made him some breakfast, but since there's no microwave in his house, he'll have to eat them cold. So Alfred points out that he's glad that Dick Grayson has abandoned his life, and wish the same thing happened to Bruce, but turns out he's also given him some papers and documents at the time of his parents' death. So just as he has a look, it turns out was a note about to his parents about not saying anything, and they point out is that Dick Grayson's parents, as well as the circus, went to Carnavia and that. So pretty much he says that he doesn't want Batman involved in this, and Alfred points out that he can't go to Carnavia as they do not welcome strangers, but Dick Grayson gets the operator to call the Canaria Embassy, and I don't know how that's possible to get a number like that. So we are shown at the Canaria Palace, where the dictator is like, here's our rules, and we shall have tried off for 15 years ago, but it is never too late, ha! And so he's got one of his assassins to show up, who is known as Ollie. So yeah, he pretty much sends out, like, what can he do? What can you prove my worth to? And so he takes out one of the people beside him and points out that it's a trick that he learned in Asia called the Death Touch, which is kind of something similar to The Simpsons. And he points out that you can be of use to me. Your first assignment is an American Richard Grayson of Gotham City. And so we see Dick Grayson and Maggie leaving out of a coffee place, and pretty much says that, you know, she's free, she has a lot of free time, and that she could be there for him, and says that maybe tomorrow they kiss, and Ollie shows up to talk with Dick Grayson, ending the story. So, what do I think of Nightwing as a first issue, and the first comic book series to have a Nightwing story? It feels pretty good. We can tell that Dick Grayson wants a simple life, but the thing about being involved in Batman's world, or having a similar life to Batman, is sometimes it's not going to be easy. So the issue deserves a thumbs up. Still good, and still right. So, Comic Reviewer here, signing out.